If you could mute your mic.
No, it's okay.
Welcome to Shareholders of a Better World, brought to you by TBLI Group.
I'm on. Welcome to our studio in Amsterdam. We have some technical issues. Our guest speaker cannot log in with his video, so we're using a workaround with audio. So you'll hear him, but you won't be able to see him. My apologies for that. For those of you who never joined before, if you want to pose a question or a comment, just type it in the lower right-hand corner. If you click on any of the three emojis below for clapping, if you find it brilliant or funny, it will record that. And if you need to send a private message to anyone in the group, just move your mouse over their name and a window will pop up and you can send them a private message. I'm really thrilled today because a very dear friend of mine, Maurits Groen, has agreed to share his experiences in, I call him the Sherlock Holmes of impact unicorn companies, because he always has a brilliance in finding the most amazing solutions that are practical, workable, and that actually work. And he was one of the few that, at his own expense, brought Al Gore many, many times to the Netherlands when he launched a film or a book. So, Maurits, why don't you share your journey and your story of what you have been doing in the sustainable space, and particularly your incredible innovation in egg production. I really want to hear about that. So welcome, Maurits. And I apologize again for the technical difficulty. I will find out what happened.
Well,
Tell us how you got started in this. I mean, I think your background was in communication, but you started doing some incredible, innovative entrepreneurial activity, which even in one of the most difficult sectors, you, in my eyes, did the impossible of getting a retail food company to do the right thing.
well, actually, for soil, for all kinds of aspects of the environmental issue. But now they were for the first time combined, and then tried to help implement that, working together with industry. But as time went by, I thought that the problems were being taken on little by little, but by far not quick enough to keep up with the growing problem. So at some point early in this century, I thought maybe I should start helping set up companies that show the way, thereby enhancing my own credibility when I was giving talks and writing articles and books, etc., on that it should be done. But if you show how it can be done and that it can be done, it's not only more credible and trustworthy, but it also helps try to solve a bit of a problem in the first place. So I helped set up companies in energy, in food, in materials, and also in education, because everything starts, of course, with a better information and another mindset. So that's very important as well. And in that respect, like I said, I set up together with other people, or I helped set up or grow companies that show the way in these essential sectors.
And how did the idea of Kipster, the idea of creating, the most sustainable egg production, but actually having a supermarket guarantee that we will pay the right price, no matter what?
Well, it was at a lunch with a chicken farmer that had been the biggest chicken farm in the Netherlands. Actually, he had farms both in the Netherlands, Western Germany, Poland, Belgium, France, Turkey. He was the biggest guy. But during the economic crisis, financial crisis in 2008, he went bankrupt because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He had amassed such a lot of credit that he got squeezed in the turmoil at that time. And that got him thinking. He was a big guy before, and then found himself in a very small rented house, having to have a salary job, giving him all the opportunity to rethink the system, since he had been a chicken farmer, not only himself all his life, but also his father and his grandfather and his great-grandfather. So he was breathing the industry, the chicken industry, but he thought, well, I was the biggest, and even I can't survive. What happened? In what kind of system are we living? And not only financially, but also the way in which the chicken business had developed. It was massified. I mean, formerly a farmer held maybe a couple of dozen of chicken, and now you have farms up to several millions of chicken, and that's also because of the fact that the egg price effectively is not higher than, say, in 1970, when you take into account inflation, etc. Whereas the cost to produce an egg have been rising very rapidly. So as a farmer, you are obliged to have more and more chicken, to borrow money from the bank to finance all that. And in the end, you are not the one earning money, but the bank and the retailers are. And in the process, you become stuck in the system, squeezed between big money and big retail. You are, you're not accepted even anymore by society, because you are being regarded as a cruel person, also polluting the environment and destroying nature, since the food for chicken, for example, they come from the former Amazon rainforest areas where the trees are being cut down, and now soybeans are being produced and shipped to the Netherlands, for example, in a country with only 17 million people. We have more than 100 million chicken. That's a crazy situation. So the Netherlands cannot at all support that by growing the food for that chicken, apart from the fact that we have very many million pigs, we have many million cows. So the Netherlands needs the size of 4.5, the total surface of the country, to produce the food for the animals that we have in our country, and that's the total surface. And so we have to import that from elsewhere, and it's a completely broke system. So when I met that broken chicken farmer, and we had a discussion. Of course, I knew what was happening with the Amazon rainforest. I knew what was happening to the environment, the detrimental effects to water, soil, and air, even nitrogen and ammonia emissions from that industry. So we sat together, and he had a lot of ideas on how to change the system. I added mine, and then he says, "Now we have a perfect situation, which is a dream if it could be true, but the only way in which we in the Netherlands can build a new chicken farm is that we have a fixed contract for, say, 5 years for the buying of all the eggs, whatever we produce, at a guaranteed decent price." So there were a number of preconditions that had to be fulfilled in order to even come to the situation where we, with Kipster, are now. So it was crucial to convince a big retailer to comply with all those wishes that we had, and it took quite a while, because it's very extraordinary for a retailer to buy stuff under those conditions. But in the end, we succeeded in convincing the CEO of Lidl in the Netherlands, who was a very extraordinary guy, I would say. In the end, he took the risk with us to let me see. Yeah, there was no incoming call. Sorry, I have to put it away. So he had to be convinced that we could supply all the eggs under those conditions, because, like I said, I have been studying political science and not poultry. We didn't have a farm. Since we didn't have money to build the farm, we didn't even have the area, the surface where we could build the farm, let alone the permits that are very hard to get by in the Netherlands, since, like I said, we are already very much overpopulated with animals, and we have come to that conclusion now. So to set up something new is really very difficult. So he had to take that risk with us, but he did.
So you convinced the CEO of Lidl,
Yep.
who's they're notorious for low cost retailer.
Yep.
So you convinced him to buy all of the eggs that you had, that you didn't even produce yet, that you didn't
40
even
million.
that you didn't even
million.
And you hadn't built a chicken farm yet. So
No.
what happens? I understood that feed is a very important part, or a significant cost in the egg production. So what happens if the feed price goes up? Does Lidl say, okay, let's get together and discuss this, and we guarantee that we'll raise the price?
Well, actually, like you said, 70% of all operational costs for a chicken farm is food. So if the price go up, and prices just right now, for example, with the Ukraine crisis, where a lot of the maize, the corn is coming from, have been rising up to 100%. When you have the wrong contract, so to say, you're out. You cannot just afford to keep on producing at that cost price. So you will go bankrupt. So that's very important. So one of the major extraordinary things that the CEO of Lidl in the Netherlands, Marcel Oosterwijk, did is that he guaranteed us, we sit together with him every half year to review prices of food. And of course, there's an entrepreneurial risk, so a certain percentage up and below the amount that we agreed is, of course, that risk that you have to take anyway. But if it's unrealistic, then we compensate each other, which is to say, when prices like now go up very rapidly, they pay more for the eggs in hindsight. And on the other hand, if the prices would have gone down beyond that entrepreneurial percentage, so to say, we would compensate them by supplying the next batches of eggs at a lower price. So it's a mutual guarantee that we will remain capable of supplying the eggs, and that they have the guarantee that we can supply them with the eggs.
Okay.
Cooperation.
Okay. Lisa wanted to ask, actually grab the mic, so I'm putting it back to her, but I stopped her for a second. So they guarantee the price for you, whether it the feed goes up or not, which I'm sure is quite an unusual situation. Okay, so let me let you grab the mic. There we go.
Hi, good morning, good evening,
Lisa,
and good afternoon, and welcome to TBLI. I'm going to hold the stage while Robert gets organized.
Are you there?
It's my great pleasure to welcome you here at TBLI, and as you know, the team are doing an outstanding job.
You're on mute. Lisa? Okay. Sorry. I go back to Maurits. So when you did this was quite
maybe one little thing in between, because it's very important. We're talking about food, but it's very important to mention that we do not grow food for them. We do not use 1 square meter of agricultural land that can be used to produce food for humans to produce food for the animals. So the only food that we produce is making that from leftovers from bakeries, from retailers, from all kinds of sources that we collect. Perfect food that otherwise would be thrown away. So we feed them so-called waste. It's not waste because to lay 330 eggs a year is really top sport. So the chicken need to be fed really well, and we do, but we do not grow the food for them on perfect agricultural land that can be used for production of food for humans directly. Okay. It's very important.
Okay, Lisa finally come back, so let's see if she can pose.
Yeah, I've got the mic back.
Lisa,
so today's session, everyone, is how to lay the golden egg in food startups with Maurits Groen. I am.
Lisa, sorry, this is not working.
There I go. I am.
Okay. So when you did this, how did the rest of the industry respond to this?
Well, you would think that farmers that are in a very difficult situation right now, and we experience that every day in the Netherlands. I don't know if you follow the news, but there's a kind of farmers uprising now because they feel very much threatened in their sheer existence. You would expect that they would look to new solutions that are not only good for the animals, for nature, for the environment, but also for the farmers and retailers and their customers. I mean, it's ideal in every single way. So you would expect that they would turn and try to change their own ways into that direction. But they don't. Many don't, because I think that they, being in a situation where they are squeezed between the banks and the retailers, are in a situation that they hardly can change. And if they would change, it would that's psychology, I think. It would prove that they had been wrong all the time. And at the same time, they feel, I'd say that the anger of society growing against them, the so-called cruel farmers that don't treat their animals well and that are polluting the environment. So they have been in a very uncomfortable situation that they are not even accepted. I say that professionals, but they feel undervalued and not seen as valuable contributors to society, supplying food, high quality food to society. So they feel in a very bad place.
So when you did this, did any other retail supermarket say, "Oh, this is kind of cool, sustainable eggs, but I have to guarantee a price," which is, they don't really like to do that. Did anyone else join this party?
Well, I informally, I've quite a lot of contacts also in the Netherlands with other retail companies. Informally, they envied Lidl that we went to them. And by the way, we did that since, like you mentioned, Lidl is a low-cost retailer. And it's been my solid opinion all the time that we can only solve the sustainability question involving everybody in society. So it shouldn't be high-quality products, organic, etc., for people with a big purse. It should involve everyone. So I'm really glad and proud that we partnered with Lidl, since this is making perfect access, to say, available for everybody. So that is very important. So informally, yes, I know of several supermarket chains, the biggest ones actually, that would have liked to have Kipster in their shelves, but also we got direct reaction from Gore in the United States, directly, even before the opening of the first farm that we have. We have 3 now in the Netherlands. They wanted to be in contact with us, and after long negotiations, I should say, also hampered by COVID, because we couldn't travel to the United States for a long time, and it's very important when you have a new partnership of this kind of magnitude. It's very important that you really meet people in person, and it's not only setting up a farm and having chicken and then have food, etc. It's a whole system. Like I said, we do not just buy some corn and buy some wheat, etc., and just feed it to chicken. We have a whole system of collection of so-called waste. We need a factory that can produce perfect food for the chicken, and there's also a lot of other aspects that are involved. So it's quite a kind of ecosystem also around the farm that you need to install. So it took quite some time, but we got to an agreement with Gore, and at the moment we are finishing 4 new farms in Indiana in the United States, and we will be opening at the end of this year there.
So can you expand this model is there demand for Kipster eggs as a brand in the supermarket in the Netherlands?
I think that if we would be able to open a number of new farms, all the eggs would be sold out.
So why don't you?
It permits. Like I said, we have way too many animals already in the first place. So we have to at least half the number of the animals, and then it's a very hard story to tell that you would build a new farm. Okay. Even if it's in many ways a much better one than the existing ones.
And so I wanted to ask you also, you told me about another company that you were helping, which was surprisingly a Dutch solar film production company that was less expensive than the Chinese, and actually more sustainably conscious in the way that they produce, and also more efficient. How is that? That doesn't add up, because we all learned that the Chinese were producing the cheapest solar panels, and this company is actually in the Netherlands.
Yeah, it's called Solarge, Solarge, and it is producing panels that are ultra lightweight. And I'll explain later why that's ultra lightweight and what the effect of that is. But it's 100% circular and recyclable. It is being produced with Norwegian hydropower instead of coal in the province in China, where the Uyghurs are being held in hostage and being put to work as under very unstable situations, I should say. So the energy intensive part is being done in Norway, and then the assembly of the solar panels is in the southern part of the Netherlands. At the moment, they're just building a really big new facility that will start producing at the end of this year, and then in one go they will triple the production. So it will pour out hundreds and hundreds of thousands of solar panels, really big ones, and they can be big and cheaper to install. Hence, they are big, since they are so ultra lightweight, like I said. And the reason why they are so ultra lightweight is that they do not use any metals as a frame. They use plastics, more precisely, recycled plastics. So we're solving a waste problem at the same time, and also in a very intelligent way. So it's a kind of honeycomb structure. So you need less material. The material as such is way lighter than the usual materials, so that you can put them on, you can mount them on roofs, big surfaces that are normally very much unfit, since they cannot bear the sheer weight of the solar panels. So in the Netherlands alone, for example, we calculated that it will add 260 square kilometers of extra roof, and that's an enormous amount. And it will produce the equivalent of 10 billion square cubic meter of natural gas. And we are a big natural gas country still, and that's 3 times the national output last year of all natural gas fields combined. So it's an additional thing. So these roofs are not used and cannot be used unless we put these ultra lightweight solar panels on top of them, and they're being produced completely in the Netherlands. So it's recyclable, since they do not hold PFAS, a very toxic family of substances, as a backsheet to the PV crystalline cells of the solar panel. It's an ideal situation.
PFAS, has that been outlawed in the EU?
It is not yet outlawed completely, I think, but it will be outlawed for solar panels very soon. European Commission has a proposal to that, and I don't know where it's exactly in the procedure, but it will be outlawed. So that will mean a very big problem for importing Chinese solar panels, since almost all of them have that PFAS backsheet.
Let's talk a little bit about investment. So you didn't produce. You weren't a chicken farmer before,
No.
and you started chicken farming, selling the production, because you sold all of the production to Lidl, a reputable brand. Yeah. Was it easy to find the investment money for that, or for the solar company?
Investment money for innovation is always very difficult, especially in a very traditional sector like poultry. So even the Rabobank, which has financed all of Dutch agriculture, refused to finance us, even after we showed them the contracts from Lidl that would buy all the eggs at a guaranteed good price. And the reaction was, well, what happens if Lidl goes broke? And then we only had to laugh, because I think Rabo will be broke much earlier than Lidl will, since they are the biggest market chain in the European Union, the third biggest in the world, and very solidly financed, since it still is a family-owned business, very conservative, but with a long-term view. So they're very solidly financed. So we went to the companies that supplied us with all the equipment that we needed in the farm. So the farm, in fact, financed itself, and all these industries supplying us with the equipment, they were interested in innovation, and to be one of the first to be installed in the first carbon neutral poultry farm in the world that also has a lot of other interesting features. So now they're very happy and proud, and it's a good investment and a good operation, and they now can supply us with all their equipment in the other farms that we have been building and are building and will be building.
And with the solar company, which seems absolutely incredible, the scaling of that. I mean, the potential must be incredible. So
It is.
Who ultimately funded that company? Not you don't have to say the names. I mean, was it an industrial bank from the Netherlands? Was it a PE company?
No, it's the same thing. Here also, it's too good to be true almost. So I found it, and I tried to help for over a year to find the investment for this first big facility. It took us a lot of time to convince finance institutions. In the end, they didn't. It was an individual, a wealthy individual that supplied us with a part of the money. It was a friend of mine actually who sold this company that invested. There was a sustainable bank that did the last amount that we needed to set this up. And the amazing thing, in my view, is that once we had financed the first big production facility, then we could double that within weeks. So once we have the saying in the Netherlands, when there's one sheep over the dam, the next of the flock follows, and that's exactly what's happening at the moment.
Not all of the innovation companies that you started they were all spiritual successes, but maybe not all financial successes. Can you talk a little bit about Waka Waka, the lamp that you developed for Africa?
Yeah. Well, everybody knows, I think, that up to 3 billion people are not connected to the power grid in the world, mainly in Africa, big parts of India, Southeast Asia, also Latin America. And I was wondering how people lit up their homes, charge their phones, etc. And I discovered that it's already some 15 years ago that people burn kerosene, which it's a toxic fluid that you set fire to, and then you have very poor light, polluting the air that you breathe. Also, very dangerous, because if you topple over the lamp, especially in those areas, people live in houses of wood, of reed, or natural materials. It's often very, very dry. There's no water to extinguish the fire when there's a fire in the end. So I discovered that, for example, to name a number, 300,000 children die every year from fires caused by toppled over kerosene lamps. 300,000. That's 800 a day. Kerosene is expensive, whereas sunlight, of course, is evenly distributed around the globe, delivered free at your doorstep every day. without any harm. So I thought, why don't we use it? So together with a friend of mine, we developed Waka Waka, which is Swahili for shine bright. We developed a solar light and charger for phones and cameras and radios, etc., to be used in off-grid areas. Of course, also enabling children to make their homework after sunset, which in Africa, for example, after 6 p.m., it's very quickly so dark that you can't see anything anymore, let alone make your homework. And education is the start of development, I think. So we set up that company and we sold the same device in the Western world in some point in some 40 countries at a price that was in the same price range as comparable devices, but we used a lot of that money for what we called the buy one, give one. So if we sold one in the Western world, so to say, we would supply a solar light, not a charger, but a solar light to people living off-grid. And in disaster situations, earthquakes or hurricanes, whatever, we would hand them out for free as an emergency tool, also in refugee situations. And we supplied schools with them, since we did not believe in giving away things for free, because it's very uneconomical, and it's also actually promoting the wrong mentality, kind of beggar mentality, which is quite out of place, and not necessary at all, since people pay for kerosene. Also, it's often just a question of pre-financing, since kerosene you can buy a small quantity every day, but buying a Waka, which is a very sturdy, sustainable device, which will last. We start producing them, I think, 13 years ago, and the first ones are still in very good operation, so they last very long. But the price, of course, was above what people could spend where they needed it most. So we needed to come up with a solution that we could pre-finance it for those people. It failed in the end, in the sense that we took upon ourselves too much of a risk. We gave away too much, and when you have a lot of products around the globe in stores that don't sell the product on day one when they are in store, we experienced that it took some up to 1 year, often from the pre-financing of the production of the Waka Wakas until we finally had the money in the bank from the sales of those Waka Wakas in the Western world. So at some point we had a very severe cash flow problem, and we had to restart the company on a different footing. But it still exists, and we have supplied millions of people with this light in dozens of countries in Latin America, Africa, Middle East, and the Far East.
You're also. You told me that you also you are involved in a revolutionary cooling system.
Yep.
It's not going to fight climate change, but it's much lower energy use. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that company is called Dutch Climate Systems, DCS.cool, COOL. To my surprise, maybe the people that are listening know the book Drawdown by Paul Hawken. Drawdown is the book explaining the top 100 solutions to combat climate disruption. Most important contribution, which effectively, to my surprise, can mean the difference between 1.5 and 2 degrees centigrade global warming. So one measure can make that difference, that big of a difference, and that's cooling. Formerly, we used to cool as a cooling agent CFKs, which harm the ozone layer, and then we had in '87 the Montreal treaty. So these CFKs were banned. They contained fluoride, but they were replaced by HFCs mainly, which do not harm the ozone layer, but still containing fluoride. And it's a disaster for the climate, since it's a compound, actually a family of compounds, that are thousands of times as potent as a greenhouse gas as CO2. So, and when you reckon that we already, in a warming planet, right now, already have 1.6 billion aircos in the world, and that will triple the next decades, according to the International Energy Agency, to 5.6. And again, knowing that already now 10% of all electricity being produced on the planet is being used for cooling, for air conditioning, and that also will triple, of course. And that electricity, by the way, mainly is produced still by burning fossil fuels. That's a disaster. And this company, Dutch Climate Systems, has come up with a solution after 17 years of research.
Wow.
With water as a cooling agent. Water, H2O. Very dangerous also because you can drown in it, but very unharmful to the environment. And the second, like you said, the second major advantage is that it has an 80% reduction in energy use. Since they very cleverly designed this system, and they also have come up with desiccants, because you have to dehumidify the air before you can cool it very deeply and very efficiently. They've come up with a desiccant that uses much less energy to get rid of the moisture that has been captured out of the air. So it's and they also, it took them quite a long time. I helped them doing that, to attract capital, money to build their first production facility. They have now, in the end, managed to get their money, and they are producing, they are installing, they are earning, very rapidly growing at the moment. But their ambitions are really big, because when you have to replace 1.7 billion of these units in a very rapidly growing market, you really have to scale up fast. So they're still looking for capital, but they're very strict. They say, we do not want people to tell us what to do with the company, because we think that we know, and that we have shown that we can do it. So capital is very welcome, but it should be friendly capital, so to say, because otherwise we will keep on financing first through the cash flow that's coming in by selling the devices, and with rolling capital, so is that credit for the machinery and the equipment that they need.
Well, what was the name of the company again? Tanisha was asking. Dutch
Climate Systems.
Dutch Climate Systems. Are they already producing?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
So they're in revenue?
Yeah, they are.
How do you find all of these companies?
Being around, sometimes people find me, because I've been around for 45 years now.
Because, I mean, these are really quite innovative breakthroughs. I'm sure you probably have others that you haven't even mentioned. I think you were telling me once about holy greens.
Yep. Greens is a pasta, Italian pasta, but not produced from wheat, but for 50% partly from spelt, and the other 50% of vegetables, more precisely vegetables that otherwise would be thrown away, that don't reach the supermarket since they are too big, small, fat, whatever, don't have the perfect size for the retailer, or for another cosmetical reason. So it's perfect food, but it will be thrown away anyway. One third of all food being produced on Earth is being thrown away before it's even been eaten. And this is a real big problem. I just mentioned drawdown, and the number three solution of the top 100 solutions to climate disruption is preventing food waste.
Yeah.
So it's a very important issue. So we produce very healthy food. People eat way too little vegetables, and sometimes eat way too much carbohydrates. So we solve a lot of those problems while having very tasty, very very tasty food, whole greens, and it's now in supermarkets all around the Netherlands. The production is scaling up really, really like an explosion. It's going really well, and we also there are looking for finance to expand into other countries.
And what can this audience that is still listening to this live? Some people had some technical issues today. I don't know what was going wrong, but anyway, we'll show it in the replay. What was what can they do to help you and these companies, these innovative startups that you're talking about? How can they help you? Because is this a finance issue that you're struggling with? Because you mentioned that Kipster is a permitting issue, which I don't think anyone in the audience can help you on the permitting, particularly with all of these nitrogen demonstrations of the farmers in the Netherlands. What can we do to help you?
Well, that depends on who the person is and what they would be interested in. So we can start a discussion. We can explore our mutual environments and see what we might do. It can be part of the issue of the solution, or people maybe can help all the way. I could explain what the different companies, and there's some more, like you mentioned, what these companies are about, what the issues are that they encounter, and then people might consider if so, how they could cooperate with us.
And are you trying to position or create a kind of incubator, accelerator, clearinghouse for sustainable development at scale in the Netherlands? Is that your ambition?
Yeah, by having encountered such a lot of companies that all encounter themselves all kinds of problems that prevent them from scaling up. I mean, we love startups in the Netherlands, and then we ignore them. And the most important phase in a company's life is, of course, the scale-up phase. I mean, you can have a nice idea. You can find some money with friends, fools, and family, develop a service or a product, and then the real hard part will be there. It's called, the value of death, the scaling up, the finding of real interesting money, but not the kind of money that big investors or big banks or pension funds are interested in, since the compliance cost and the way of finding out, is this really something worthwhile investing in? Is not too risky, etc. Is it not too early stage? That are the problems that have to be solved. And I'm actually already busy with some people to set up a kind of, like you said, clearinghouse. We collect those companies, we talk to them, we try to assess the situation, what their needs are, and try to help them by either connecting them to right manager or funds or people that might act as a launching customer, or organize the right publicity on the right stages for them, on the right publications. It can differ. It's what we call maatwerk. It's tailor-made assistance.
But what is your experience with the private equity funds that have been set up supposedly to invest in climate solutions or ag tech or food tech, are they, I mean, because basically they should be funding the companies that you're talking about, but I don't get the impression that many of them are being funded by those institutions.
My impression is limited, but my impression is that people tend to invest more likely in IT kind of solutions than in really material solutions. I mean, a chicken farm is a farm with live animals, with all the risks involved, etc. Not too high margins, so large. It's producing actual things, material things that have to rely on distribution channel, all kinds of things that might go wrong. Dutch climate system, same thing. Holy Greens, the same thing. I didn't mention virus. I didn't mention Ignite. They all are material products that need solid supply lines, that need distribution, that need actual individual customers that have to go either to a shop or a web shop or whatever. It's the so-called old economy stuff, and investors rather invest in IT kind of startups.
Platforms.
Is my impression. Yeah. Platforms, yeah.
Tanuja had a question. She says it seems that in the impact sector, most practitioners are either in products or in financing them. What other services or organizations would be useful for the sector?
Organizations that are lean in the sense that they don't take too much time, and they don't take also too much money by assessing a company, that are willing to cooperate rather than to to assess, only assess from a distance, and then make their judgment whether to finance or to cooperate or not.
And what are your plans for 2023? We're running out of bandwidth to really address climate. You know, we're going to have to really switch to adaptation rather than trying to stop it. So you're involved in cooling and food production and more efficient food production. Is that the direction that you want to keep going in technology, food innovation, and energy? Energy,
food, materials, and education, like I said, because we have to eat, we need power, we need energy, and we also need materials to build, to print, to print books, or to build roads. We need all those services, and when we can sequester carbon while addressing those needs, and all of these companies that I just mentioned do all those things at the same time. So I think that we are finally in the position, or at a stage where all these companies that have a perfect solution to a real issue, to a real need, can be scaled up rapidly, and that's, I think, that what we should do.
Are you optimistic or pessimistic?
I think it's not so much a matter of optimism or pessimism. It's more realism. So something's going on. I mean, we won't perish as humankind, but it's also, we're not in a perfect situation either. We're somewhere in between, and whatever we do determines where the needle will go to. And only 1% of change will mean the lives of hundreds of millions of people. So it's very important that we do what we can.
And I'm going to send everyone who registered, who attended live. We had some people had difficulty getting in. I think it's because we changed the dates from 2 weeks ago to this one. There might have been some technical issues. So I will send everybody a replay of this discussion that we had. If you want me to add anything to them, your LinkedIn or reports or your website that they want to follow up, or any of your upcoming Al Gore meetings, please send that to me. Again, I apologize that we couldn't get this video working properly, and I apologize for those of you who had some difficulty. I will try to make a group selfie. I realize that, Maurits, you're not going to be in on the photo because of you're calling in. And yes, everyone can contact Maurits on LinkedIn, and I'll share that with him and anything else that he's willing to share. You can wave to the camera and I'll add that to that. So Maurits, thank you so much for doing this. And
thank
also
you so much
for all the incredible work that you're doing, and that you actually find concrete solutions that work and are profitable, because everybody I bump into says that they can't find any, there's no deals out there, they're desperate for deals, they can't find anybody. And I always say, I say to them that, well, it depends on what ghetto you're looking in. I think if you're looking on Bloomberg or Reuters, you're not going to find them. No. But there's lots and lots and lots of opportunities out there. So thank you very, very much. And thank you for those of you who were able to join us today. And I'll send a replay of this. It'll be processed, and then we'll send that out to everyone, and some contact details from Maurits. Maurits, you stay well. Speak soon.
Thank you very much. You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
And thank you all very much. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulty. I will make sure that everyone who registers for this event gets a free pass with our next one with the grandson of the inventor of the espresso machine, Luca Ranciulio. Thank you all. See you soon. Bye-bye.